Have you ever wondered where poker really came from? Most people assume it was born in the smoky casinos of Las Vegas, surrounded by flashing lights, whiskey glasses, and piles of chips. But what if I told you that poker's roots stretch back over 1,000 years, to ancient Persia, to Chinese dynasties, and to the French nobles of the 17th century? What if the game we know today, of bluffs, bets, and bold faces, didn't begin in America at all, but on the decks of ships crossing oceans and in secret gatherings where fortune and deception danced together? This is the untold story of poker, a story of how an ancient pastime became one of the most influential games in human history. Poker. Just hearing the word brings to mind images of confidence, calculation, and mystery. The shuffle of cards. The quiet click of chips dot the flicker of a glance that could mean everything or nothing. But beyond the glitz of casinos and televised tournaments lies a fascinating history full of cultural crossovers, unexpected twists, and even danger. Because poker didn't appear out of nowhere. It evolved, piece by piece, from centuries of human fascination with risk, luck, and strategy. And the journey begins much farther back than you'd ever imagine. Historians believe that some of the earliest ancestors of poker emerged in ancient China around the 10th century. During the Tang Dynasty, there were records of a card-like domino game played among nobles and soldiers. These were more than just games of chance. They were about storytelling, trade, and even politics. The Chinese invented paper money and paper cards, laying the groundwork for every card game that would follow. Around the same time, in ancient Persia, there was a game called Asnas. This game used 25 cards with ornate designs and ranks, and the gameplay involved betting, hand hierarchies, and most importantly, bluffing. Yes, bluffing. Pretending you had a stronger hand than you actually did was part of Asnas centuries before poker existed. Persian sailors and traders carried this game along the Silk Road and into Europe. As their ships docked in ports from India to Italy and France, the spirit of Asnas spread. Europeans took the idea and merged it with their own card traditions. In Germany, a popular game called Pocken emerged, meaning to brag or to bluff. Sound familiar? Around the same period, the French created poke, which quickly became a favorite among the aristocracy. It was played with a 52-card deck, and players would bet, raise, and bluff, a clear ancestor to modern poker. When French settlers crossed the Atlantic in the early 1700s, they brought poker with them to the New World. The city of New Orleans, with its mix of cultures, languages, and trade, became the perfect melting pot for the game's next evolution. As Americans picked up the game, they struggled to pronounce the French name poke. Over time, it became simplified poker, and with that, a new name and a new legend was born. By the early 1800s, poker had begun to spread northward along the Mississippi River, carried by traders, soldiers, and gamblers. Riverboats were the lifeblood of 19th century America, floating palaces filled with merchants, musicians, and card players. Inside smoky cabins lit by oil lamps, men in waistcoats sat around wooden tables, betting gold coins, silver dollars, and sometimes their entire fortunes on the turn of a card. The early version of poker was simple. It used only 20 cards and 4 players. Whoever had the best hand won. But as it spread, the deck expanded to the standard 52 cards, introducing the familiar hands we know today: pairs, straights, flushes, and full houses. Poker became the great equalizer of the American frontier. It didn't matter where you were from or how much you had in your pocket. If you could read a man's bluff, you could win. Soldiers played it during the Civil War, both Union and Confederate. Cowboys dealt hands around campfires. It was more than a pastime. It was part of the rugged American spirit, a blend of luck, skill, and survival. By the mid-1800s, poker found its way into the dusty saloons of the Wild West. Imagine this scene. The doors swing open, boots clack across the wooden floor, and the smell of whiskey and cigar smoke fills the air. A piano plays in the corner while men in hats gather around a table. The stakes? Sometimes money, sometimes gold, sometimes life itself. One of the most legendary poker stories from this era is that of Wild Bill Hickok, the gunfighter and gambler. In 1876, while playing a hand in Deadwood, South Dakota, Hickok was shot dead at the table. In his hand were 2 pairs, aces and eights. Ever since, that hand has been known as the dead man's hand. Poker during this time was raw and dangerous. There were no referees, no rules, and certainly no cameras. Cheating was common, tempers flared, and sometimes games ended in bloodshed. Yet despite that, or perhaps because of it, poker thrived. It became part of the mythos of the American West, a game that tested courage, intelligence, and control. As the 20th century began, poker began to evolve once again. The classic forms of draw poker and stud poker ruled the day, but a new variant was emerging quietly in the heart of Texas. Around the early 1900s, in a small town called Robstown, gamblers were experimenting with a different style of play. Instead of keeping all cards secret, they dealt a few shared community cards on the table that all players could use to make their hands. This variant, known as Texas Hold'em, completely transformed the game's strategy. It required not just luck, but deep psychological reading and long-term planning. For decades, Texas Hold'em remained a regional curiosity, known only to local gamblers and underground games, until the late 1960s. A group of Texas road gamblers, including legends like Doyle Brunson, Amarillo Slim, and Crandall Addington, brought the game to Las Vegas. They convinced casino owner Benny Binion to feature it at his Horseshoe Casino. Binion saw something special in the game's mix of skill and suspense. In 1970, he organized the first World Series of Poker, or WSOP. It was a modest event with just 7 players, but it marked the birth of professional poker as we know it. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, the WSOP grew rapidly. Television networks began to take interest, broadcasting the final tables and turning poker into a spectator sport. However, there was one problem. Viewers couldn't see the players' cards, making it hard to follow the drama. That changed in the late 1990s with the invention of the whole card camera, which allowed audiences to see exactly what each player was holding. Suddenly, poker wasn't just about gambling. It was about psychology, storytelling, and human drama. The world watched as players bluffed, folded, and risked everything with just a flicker of emotion. Names like Johnny Chan, Phil Hellmuth, and Stu Ungar became legends. Ungar, known as the Kid, was a prodigy whose genius at reading people made him nearly unbeatable. He won the World Series of Poker main event 3 times, an unmatched feat that cemented his place in poker history. Then came the 2000s, the decade that changed everything. The internet revolution hit poker like a tidal wave. Websites like PokerStars, Full Tilt Poker, and Party Poker launched online platforms where anyone could play from home. Suddenly, poker wasn't confined to casinos. It was global. People could log in, play for real money, and face opponents from across the world. And then, in 2003, a man named Chris Moneymaker, yes, that's his real name, changed poker forever. Moneymaker was an ordinary accountant from Tennessee who entered a $39 online poker satellite tournament. That small buy-in won him a seat at the World Series of Poker main event in Las Vegas. Against all odds, he beat hundreds of professionals and won $2.5 million. His victory inspired millions of amateur players who realized they could also rise from obscurity to stardom. This became known as the Moneymaker effect, and it ignited the poker boom. For the next several years, poker exploded in popularity. Televised tournaments drew massive audiences. Online rooms filled with millions of players. Teenagers studied strategy books and dreamed of becoming the next poker champion. The game wasn't seen as gambling anymore. It was seen as a sport of skill, calculation, and mental endurance. But poker wasn't done evolving. In the 2010s, the game went truly global. Major tournaments appeared everywhere: the European Poker Tour, the Asian Poker Tour, and countless online series. Players from every continent competed for titles and million-dollar prizes. Technology brought new dimensions: live streaming, training software, and even artificial intelligence. AI systems like Libratus and Pluribus shocked the world by defeating elite human pros in complex poker games, proving that poker is more than luck. It's a science of probability, game theory, and psychology. Yet despite all the digital advancements, poker's soul hasn't changed. Whether played with paper cards in a back room or on a smartphone app halfway across the world, the essence remains the same: risk, patience, and the art of the bluff. So why does poker captivate people so deeply? Because it's more than just a card game. It's a reflection of life itself. Every player is dealt a hand they didn't choose. Some get lucky, others don't. But what defines success is into the hand you were given? It is how you play it. Poker teaches confidence, strategy, self-control, and reading others, skills that echo far beyond the felt tables. Poker also taps into our primal fascination with deception and truth. It's about control, not over the cards, but over yourself. Can you stay calm under pressure? Can you convince others that your weakness is strength? Every hand is a battle of wits, where silence, timing, and subtle gestures mean more than words. And yet, after centuries of evolution, one question still lingers. Who really invented poker? The truth is, no one person did. Poker wasn't born in one moment or one place. It evolved through centuries of cultural exchange. From the Persian sailors of Asnaz, to the French nobles playing poke, to the American cowboys shuffling cards by candlelight. Each added a piece of the puzzle, creating a game that reflects humanity's endless dance between chance and control. In a way, poker was invented by all of us. By our love of risk, our desire to win, and our curiosity about what lies behind another person's eyes. That's why it endures. Today, poker stands as a billion-dollar industry, a global sport, and a test of human psychology. From casino floors in Macau to streaming tables on Twitch, it continues to captivate minds and hearts. And every time someone looks across the table, wondering if their opponent is bluffing, they're taking part in a 1,000-year-old tradition that has outlived empires, wars, and revolutions. So the next time you hold your cards, remember, you're not just playing a game, you're holding history. Every shuffle, every bet, every stare down carries the weight of centuries dot, and that's the real magic of poker. It's not about luck or even money. It's about reading people, trusting your instincts, and daring to take the ultimate gamble, not against the cards, but against yourself. Because in poker, just like in life, it's not the hand you're dealt that matters. It's how you play it.